Thank you. You guys rest yourselves. Thank you so much. It is really great to be here today with all of you. We have with us today college and universities presidents. We have experts and advocates and civic and business leaders, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here today and for working every day to help young people pursue their education and build brighter futures for themselves and for our country. And I'd also like us to give a really big hand to Troy for sharing that story. That's pretty powerful stuff and presented so eloquently. I know yesterday I met Troy. He was nervous. I don't really know why you were nervous. You're pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So, Troy's story reminds us all of the limitless capacity that lies within all of our young people, no matter where they come from or how much money they have. Troy is an example of why we all should care deeply about this issue. And Troy and millions of others like him are why I care so much about this issue and why in the coming years I'm going to be spending more and more of my time focusing on education. Because as everyone here knows, education is the key to success for so many kids. And my goal specifically is to reach out directly to young people and encourage them to take charge of their futures and complete an education beyond high school. And I'm doing this because so often when we talk about education, we talk about our young people and what we need to do for them. We talk about the programs we need to create for them, about the resources we need to devote to them. But we must remember that education is a two-way bargain. And while there is so much more we must do for our kids, at the end of the day, as Troy described, the person who has the most say over whether or not a student succeeds is the student, him or herself. Ultimately, they are the ones sitting in that classroom. They're the ones who have to set goals for themselves and work hard to achieve those goals every single day. So my hope is that with this new effort, that instead of talking about our kids, we talk with our kids. I want to hear what's going on in their lives. I want to inspire them to step up and commit to their education so they can have opportunities they never even dreamed of. I'm doing this because that story of opportunity through education is the story of my life. And I want them to know that it can be their story too. But only if they devote themselves to continuing their education past high school. And for many students, that might mean attending a college or a university like the ones many of you represent. For others, it might mean choosing a community college. It might mean pursuing short-term professional training. But no matter what they do, I want to make sure that students believe that they have what it takes to succeed beyond high school. That's going to be my message to young people. But here's the thing. I know that that message alone isn't enough. Like I said, this is a two-way street, and that means we all have to step up. Because make no mistake about it, these kids are smart. They will notice if we're not holding up our end of the bargain. They will notice if we tell them about applying for college or financial aid, but then no one's there to help them choose the right school or fill out the right forms. They will notice if we tell them that they're good enough to graduate from college, but then no college asks them to apply. No college invites them to visit their campus. And so we've got to recommit ourselves to helping these kids pursue their education. And as you discussed in your first panel today, one of the first steps is getting more underserved young people onto college campuses. The fact is that right now we are missing out on so much potential because so many promising young people like Troy who have the talent it takes to succeed, simply don't believe that college can be a reality for them. Too many of them are falling through the cracks. And all of you know that all too well. And that's why so many of you are already finding new ways to reach out to the underserved students in your communities. You're helping them navigate the financial aid and college admissions process, and you're helping them find schools that match their abilities and interests. And I know from my own experience just how important all of that work is that you're doing. See, the truth is that if Princeton hadn't found my brother as a basketball recruit, and if I hadn't seen that he could succeed on a campus like that, never would have occurred to me to apply to that school, never. And I know that there are so many kids out there just like me, kids who have a world of potential, but maybe their parents never went to college, or maybe they've never been encouraged to believe they could succeed there. And so that means it's our job to find those kids. It's our job to help them understand their potential and then get them enrolled in a college that can help them meet their needs. But then we all know that just getting into school is only half the story, because once students are there, they have got to graduate. And that's not always easy, especially given what many of these kids are dealing with when they get to campus. I just think about it. You just heard a snippet from Troy. Just to make it to college, these kids have already overcome so much. Neighborhoods riddled with crime and drugs, moms and dads who weren't around, too many nights when they had to go to bed hungry. But as I tell these kids when I talk to them, we can't think about those experiences that they've had as weaknesses. Just the opposite. They're actually strengths. In facing and overcoming these challenges, these kids have developed skills like grit and resilience that many of their peers will never be able to compete with, never. And when they get out in the world, those are the exact skills they will need to succeed, and they will succeed. But imagine how hard it is to realize that when you first get to college. You're in a whole new world. You might have trouble making friends because you don't see any peers who come from a background like yours. You might be worried about paying for classes and food and room and board because you have never had to set your own budget before. You might be feeling guilty when you call home because mom and dad are wondering why you didn't get a job so you could help support their family. Those are the kinds of obstacles these kids are facing right from day one. But let's be clear, all of that isn't just a challenge for them. It's a challenge for folks like us who are committed to helping them succeed. And make no mistake about it, that is our mission. Not simply giving speeches or raising money or hosting conferences, but to take real, meaningful action that will help our young people get into college and, more importantly, actually get their degree. And here's the good news. Time and again, you all have shown that you have the experience, the passion, and the resources to help these young people thrive. For example, in recent decades, you've realized that students from across the socioeconomic spectrum have been coming to campus with more and more issues like eating disorders and learning disabilities, emotional challenges like depression and anxiety, and so much more. And luckily, you all have not shied away from these issues. I've seen it. I worked at a university. And you haven't said, these aren't our problems. We're a university, not a hospital or a counseling center. No, you've stepped up. And while there's still work left to do on these issues, you're working every day to support these kids through treatment programs and outreach initiatives and support groups, because you know that these issues have a huge impact on whether students can learn and succeed at your school. So now, as you begin to see more and more underserved students on your campuses, we need you to direct that same energy and determination toward helping these kids face their unique challenges. Now, fortunately, you've already got the expertise you need to address these issues, and simply by building on what you're already doing best, you can make real differences for these kids. And that's what so many of you are doing with commitments you've made here at this summit. For example, every school offers financial aid services, But listen to what the University of Minnesota is doing. They're committing to expand those services to include financial literacy programs to help students and their families manage the cost of college. And every school has advisors who desperately want their students to succeed. Oregon Tech is committing to set up a text message program so that these advisors can connect more easily with students who need some extra encouragement or academic support. And every college has orientation programs or learning communities to help students transition to college. And many of the schools here today are supplementing those programs by partnering with organizations like the Posse Foundation so that underserved students can connect and build a social network before they even step foot on campus. And those were the types of resources that helped a kid like me not just survive, but thrive at a school like Princeton. When I first arrived at school as a first-generation college student, I didn't know anyone on campus except my brother. I didn't know how to pick the right classes or find the right buildings. I didn't even bring the right size sheets for my dorm room bed. I realized those beds were so long. So I was a little overwhelmed and a little isolated. But then I had an opportunity to participate in a 3-week on-campus orientation program that helped me get a feel for the rhythm of college life. And once school started, I discovered the Campus Cultural Center, the Third World Center, where I found students and staff who came from families and communities that were similar to my own. And they understood what I was going through. They were there to listen when I was feeling frustrated. They were there to answer the questions I was too embarrassed to ask anyone else. And if it weren't for those resources and the friends and the mentors, I honestly don't know how I would have made it through college. But instead, I graduated at the top of my class, I went to law school, and you know the rest. So whether it's aligning with an organization like Posse, or offering a new advising or mentoring program, or creating a central space where students can connect with one another, you all can take simple steps that can determine whether these kids give up and drop out or step up and thrive. And that's not just good for these young people, it's good for your schools, because if you embrace and empower these students, and if you make sure they have good campus experiences, then they're going to stay engaged with your school for decades after they graduate. They will be dressed up in school colors at homecoming games. They'll be asking to serve on your committees and advisory boards. And they'll be doing their part when fundraising season rolls around. So believe me, these will be some of the best alumni you could possibly ask for. Because after everything these kids will have overcome to get into college and get through college, believe me, they will have all the skills they need to run our businesses and our labs and to teach in our classrooms and to lead our communities. Just look at me and look at Troy and the countless success stories from the organizations and schools represented here in this room. That's how we will win this country. We will win by tapping the full potential of all of our young people so that we can grow our economy and move this country forward. And let me tell you, that is something that my husband understands deeply, because his life story, just like mine, is rooted in education as well. And as president, that is what drives him every single day. His goal of expanding opportunity to millions of Americans who are striving to build better futures for themselves, for their families, and for our country as well. So now, it is my pleasure to introduce my husband, the President of the United States, Barack Obama.